Yo, welcome back to the Wrestling Strength Podcast. As always, I am your host, Coach Myers. I got a special guest for you today, my athlete, UFC star, future Hall of Famer, Matt, the Immortal Brown. You know, Matt's one of the longest tenured fighters in the sport. He holds the welterweight record for most finishes and most knockouts. And we dig deep into UFC scoring and fatherhood and everything in between. Let's roll the show. Dude, those sprints felt good today. Yeah. Or intervals. I shouldn't even call them sprints, but I felt
the first few I didn't like, and then we got in the groove.
Yeah, it seemed like after the first couple, feels like fuck, we gotta do 10 of these.
Yeah,
but I never felt like I ended up like off the cliff. You know what I mean? To where it felt fucking miserable. The last time we did that one where we kept increasing them each time, then had to come back down, I was over the cliff at some point on those.
Yeah, that was the shit though.
Yeah. We'll get back to that. I didn't want to hit you with. I want to do some hard intervals today, but nothing too taxing yet. Another week or two.
I thought it was solid, man, just because I had a pretty hard day yesterday. I had a hard time getting going today.
Yeah. I've been tired this week in general.
Yeah. I was feeling pretty mellow, bro. You know what I mean?
During the lift, we were all kind of mellow.
Yeah. That didn't help.
Yeah.
Like the music was a little mellow today, I felt like.
Right.
I was about to put on some fucking heavy metal or something.
Yeah, but you put some heavy metal on, and then you'd been like, fuck, I feel good today. Let's move up on the belt squat. I wanted today, like on weights, to be easy for you. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
Like just kind of go through the motions, make sure nothing hurts, get some blood in there, you know what I mean? But if you'd put on fucking Rage or something, then it's,
Or Hate Breed,
whatever.
Yeah, I learned Dustin about the Hate Breed.
So one of my boys loves Hate Breed. I don't know. The name sounds crazy to me, though. It sounds like some like Nazi shit or something. But he said it's not like that.
So that's they're actually on CNN lumped in that group, because of the name.
Really?
But what the name is, what it actually means is fucking great. Like I related to it a lot as a youngster. It was like all that anger that you feel as a youth is like turning it into positivity.
Okay.
That's why it's the most positive. Like, if you read the lyrics, the most positive lyrics you'll ever read in your life. Like, tons of great, like, quotable quotes. And
so it's a classic example of, like, if you don't look below the surface level, then you think it's, you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah, because he always talked about Hate Breed. I'm like, how can you listen to something called Hate Breed? He's like,
right.
He's like, man, it's not like that.
And dude, you'd probably actually like it if you kind of got into it. Like, to take, like, that initial barrier of entry. Mm-hmm. Getting used to like screaming and stuff, but
see, I don't really fuck with the screaming stuff though. Well, I like punk music though.
So it's a little bit like another level beyond punk. When I say screaming, it's more like chanting. They do tons of like chanting type stuff, not screaming.
Talk about like Misfits, like
sort
like
of, yeah. But they'd be chanting more like actual lyrics.
Give me a chant.
Live for this,
Live for this. Live. See, I can fuck with
this. That. If you don't live for something, you'll die for nothing. Live for this. Yeah.
Okay, so I can fuck with that.
Yeah.
All right, so next workout, we'll rock to some Hate Breed.
I'll rock Hate Breed every day, bro. He wrote my walkout song too.
Really?
I don't know if you ever heard it.
I mean, I'm sure I've heard it, but maybe just didn't
pay attention.
Yeah, didn't pay attention to it. I was probably sitting there going, oh man, I hope he does good. No shit, man. Fucking the most nervous I've ever been in a fight was your fight in Cincinnati when you fought Silva.
Eric Silva, yeah.
Yeah. It was me, Corey, and Ramos were cage side for that.
Oh shit. Okay.
And what a fucking fight, man. When you got hurt early, kick to the body, and fucking man, it was just it was a roller coaster of emotions in that fight. I'm sure for you too, or if you even remember most of it, but
I remember it. It wasn't really roller coaster emotions for me, but
I remember he kicked you in the liver, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he took your back, so he was on your back for like the better part of that round.
Yeah.
Until you got loose at the end of it, you know.
Yeah.
And then start putting it on him.
Yeah. Yep. And I remember just thanking God that he took my back, because
it gave you a rest almost, right?
Kind of like because I started to try to get up, and he started punching my face, but I was like covering my liver, and I was like, yeah, just keep punching my face. You know what I mean? That'll save me from like, just don't punch my body again. And then he took my back, and I was like, okay. You know, obviously I don't want to get choked out, but at least I'm not getting punched anymore. So,
well, dude, to get hit in the liver and then still have to fight after that. I think I got hit, you know, boxing in the liver maybe twice in sparring. Travis Clark got me one time in the liver. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was just the worst. It feels like you're going to puke and shit and you can't stand up. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's just terrible. So and it was like, all right, I took a knee and like I'm done sparring for the day.
Right.
Or at least for a half hour or whatever. Mm-hmm. I couldn't imagine like now I got someone on my back trying to choke me and punch me in the face and I got to fight him for another 14, 15 minutes or whatever. Because that happened so early in the fight.
Yeah, it was like 30 seconds in. But, you know, it's like when you get in the fight, man, I guess like persistence goes beyond everything, right? Like, you know, you got one goal in mind and you're just going to go for that goal. And that's how I feel. You know, it's like everybody talks about like, you know, like taking punches or, you know, hits to the body or leg kicks and the pain you go through. And I'm like, I don't even think about that stuff. Just like when we're on the airdyne, like you're not thinking about the pain. You're thinking about this is my goal and I'm getting there, period. Like, like you're climbing a mountain. Like you're not like, oh, my legs are so tired. It's like, no, right there's the top of the mountain and that's where we're going.
I mean, it sounds cliche, but you think that was one of those moments where like almost like people try to compare it to like life or death situation. You know what I mean? Like where you're just like you said, there is no like thought about the crowd or about this or that or how bad you hurt. It's just you're trying to survive. Your goal is to win and to survive.
Yeah, it's just a matter of having a singular goal in mind and doing everything you can to get there. You know, I don't always get there, but that's the goal, right? And you know, it's the same thing. I think, you know, I think you'd probably see this pretty regularly, you know, with these guys in life and in wrestling and in fighting and everything, right? They might set a goal, but they're not singularly focused on that goal.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's what I think a lot of fighters, especially like as I get older, you know, it gets more difficult because you're so drawn to so many other things. And then you get that fight and then it's like, okay, now there's a singular goal.
But you still got those outside forces pulling on you.
Yeah, and I think that's part of like why I'm addicted to fighting and why I love it, because I love having that singular goal. And I like to it gives me an excuse to say no to everything else. You know what I mean? But when you don't have that, you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll give this a try or something, which, you know, can really pull you away pretty quickly. But that, you know, I think wrestling would be the same. Like you would relate to it, like with wrestling, fitness, everything, right? Like that's the biggest point of failure that I see with up and comers, amateurs, business, life, everything. It's like they just don't have singular goals. Their focus gets distracted. Like I've always said my own story. When I came up, I, you know, overdosed on heroin. I had no friends, you know, all this stuff, had no direction. And then I found fighting and I said, I'm going to do this or I'm going to die trying. That's singular goal. You know what I mean? I was willing to die that day. Like if you told me you get a UFC belt today, but that means you're dying tomorrow, I would have took it in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? I don't think a lot of people have that.
Most people have never experienced a point in their life where they feel like there's no other option. You know, that was a situation where like you had no other option than to kind of pursue this and try to be successful in this, which you probably didn't even realize it could lead to this type of success that you've had now.
Lord, no.
But the other option was to keep going down that road and dead in jail, whatever.
Well, yeah, in some senses, yes. But I did have other options. I mean, I was like, 22, 23 years old. I mean, I could have went to school. You know, I could have just been a sober, good kid and worked a job. You know what I mean? There's other options for sure.
Of course there's other options. But I'm saying like your mindset at that point was there is no other option.
Yes.
Like I have to go this way.
I didn't give myself other options.
Yeah. So of course there's always, you could say, well, why don't you go to culinary school? Or why don't you try this? You know, that's just because there's options that exist in the world doesn't mean they really existed for you. Yeah. The option was like, it's all or nothing.
Yeah. And that's exactly my point. Like picking the goal and putting everything into it. I don't see enough guys that are all in.
Yeah, I think, for me, I think of things like my singular focus is always like, how can I be the best dad that I can, and how can I be a good husband? The hard part is, though, or I don't know whether it's a hard part or maybe a good thing, is that in order for that to be a singular goal, then I really have to focus on all these other things because they all contribute to it.
Yeah.
I can't say, well, like, you know what, I don't want to go to work today because I just want to be home and be a dad.
But
Because
that's not being a dad, right?
right, exactly. Being a dad, I got to set a good example for the kids. I got to go to work. I got to make money so I can provide for them. I mean, Jack just came home last night. He wants to do club soccer in the spring. They already looked at the signs. It's $1,000 for club soccer for a 10-year-old.
Oh God.
You know what I mean? So
$1,000.
I know, right? I mean, the rec that he plays in now, I don't know what it, maybe $100 or something.
Right. I think also in our culture, there's a lot of different perceptions of like what a good father is. In my perception of that is like, I'm a provider. Like, I set an example. Like, I'm not there to change diapers and cook meals and shit. Now, I know a lot of people might listen to that and be, oh, that's sexist, whatever, But I'm like, look, to me, that's like what the roles are, like a child, in my opinion, needs their mom more than they need their dad. Their dad needs to put food on the table and be a good example, teach them how to be a man, take care of the woman, take care of the kids. But
see, I think when you choose to do that, there's nothing really sexist about it. Yeah, I mean, our family was in a position where, my wife's always worked full time, but when she got pregnant with our first child, and when we went through that of the kids being little, we opted for her to stay home and take care of the kids because we felt like that was the best thing for them. So the trade-off for that was I had to work my ass off.
Right.
So I missed a lot of it. Now, if I was home, at night or on the weekends or whatever, and I had to change a diaper, I would do it. I wouldn't say, well, that ain't my job.
No, for sure.
I mean, because that would be sexist then.
Yeah.
But I think.
Well, that's just being an asshole.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But no, I still believe, and I'm very thankful that we were able to do it because I think that was the best thing for the kids, was for Julie to be able to be home with them all the time. And now obviously they're old enough. She's back to work, and we have to. When she's busier with work, then like, hey, last night, guess what? I had to do dishes and I did laundry.
Right.
I don't like it, but it's like the reality is she's in there writing up a contract for her.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that, and this is like, I should never have to do that or whatever. But I see.
Well, see, I knew what you meant. I'm covering for you a little bit because I knew like if it was just that soundbite, people were going to take it the wrong way.
Yeah, they say, I don't care if they take it the wrong way. Because I guess kind of the way that I've seen it, I used to get very disappointed about like missing certain things. But then when I changed my perception of it, right? Like I'm not missing, I'm providing the ability to do that. You know what I mean? Like I'm not missing their football game. Like I'm providing them to be able to play a football game.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Especially if you can't be there. Yeah. Because you're at training camp or whatever.
I mean, yeah, if I'm missing because I'm like, I don't fucking feel like going. That's just being an asshole.
Yeah, yeah.
But if I'm doing something that is providing them the ability to do it, I'm not actually missing it.
I'm going to give you another take on it, which this is one of those things that probably people have thought before, but they might not say out loud. My buddy Rhodes is a singer for this band from Cleveland, Tropodelic. Love these guys. I've known them forever. And, they're all getting to be, 30 or so. Some of them are having kids, whatever. So he just had his first child, has this, young son, and he's really struggling with, they're on the road a lot. They're a touring band. They're not, they've broken through to a certain level of fame to where, they got some notoriety and stuff like that, but they're not the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They're not Hatebreed or one of these other bands that are way up there, right? So they got to make their money. They're out there on the road all year round. And, I talked to them. They had their festival, Everwild. It was down here at Legend Valley in August or whatever. And we went for a run the one morning, and he was talking about, he's like, man, it's just getting hard to have to leave my son. And kind of the point I was trying to make, I told him, I said, yeah, when my kids were really little, I was never home. I was working all morning. I'd maybe come home and see them at lunchtime for a little bit, play with them for a minute or so, and then I'm back to work training clients till 8 or 9 at night, and it's basically bedtime. So I feel like I missed out on those first couple years. But like you said, number one, I was providing so that my wife was able to stay home, and number two, this is the part that I think people won't say out loud, is that the kids don't remember anyway. They don't remember anything from when they're a year, 2, 3, 4 years old. What I think they remember is a general feeling, a general sense of like, did my dad love me and provide me and things like, but they don't remember any of the specifics. My kids don't remember if I was there changing diapers.
That's very true.
You know what I mean? So like kind of the point I tried to make to him was like, Rhodes, like, just be there for your son and be present in the moment when you're there with him. But he's not going to remember that you were in San Diego and on the West Coast touring for 2 weeks because he just don't remember any of that
What
shit.
he'll remember is when he's 10 years old and now you take him on the road with you and you're having a fucking blast and he's learning from dad how to be a rock star,
right?
And have integrity as a rock star or whatever, he is personally.
He'll get to be kind of immersed in that cool little world or whatever. That's the kind of stuff he'll remember.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about myself. I missed a lot of stuff when my kids were young. For one, I don't think a kid even needs his dad for the first couple of years. I mean, what are you doing? You're changing diapers, feeding them, and showing them some love. And I'm like, okay, I'll hold you.
It's honestly almost more for the dad than for the baby.
In some ways, I think it is. Yeah. I mean, it's fun, and it's great memories to watch them take their first steps and stuff like that. And it is disappointing to miss those things. It'd be great to just have a great life and have Elon Musk money and sit at home all day and just hang out with your kids. Like, I would absolutely do that if I could, but I wouldn't do that if I could. Now that I think about it, like, I'm a grinder, I don't like that shit. But again, like, you're providing them the best place that you can. That's your job, in my opinion. And so anyway, in my situation, like, I missed a lot of that shit when I was younger. But now my kids come to my fights, I had to build that. Like, you don't make money in the UFC, a lot of money at least, unless you become like a champion or something, or you have a big name like a Sean O'Malley. Like, he did it right. Like, he's a smart guy like that. I didn't do all that. So, I wasn't making a lot of money. But now I'm making more money and my kids can like come to my fights and see me doing great things. And
they're able to grow up in your gym too.
They grow up in the gym that I built. Like, these are the kinds of things that are much more meaningful in the long run, right? When they're 20 or 30, 40 years old, they're not going to remember that you've seen their first steps, like you said, right? Like, and they're not going to give a shit. But they're going to remember when they went to that fight and you had your hand raised and and they came backstage and met Dana White, and you know what I mean? Like, like, these are beautiful memories here.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna talk some more UFC stuff. We're gonna switch gears real quick. We actually got to pay the bills. Got to give a shout out to the sponsors real quick. As always, the Wrestling Strength Podcast is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. Make sure you go to maxeffortmuscle.com for all your supplement needs. Look, we formulated a lot of our supplements specifically for my elite athletes like Matt, my elite wrestlers, Corey's elite powerlifting team. We trust them with our athletes for their recovery and for their performance. If it's good enough for our athletes, it's good enough for you. That's what I always say. I get questions from parents all the time that say, oh, is creatine safe, or is amino recovery, should a kid take this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, my kids take it, my athletes take it. I'm not going to try to sell you something that's dangerous. And this is the only company that I would trust recommending to my athletes is Max Effort Muscle. So go to maxeffortmuscle.com and get your supplements and we got pretty good gear too, as you can tell if you're watching the video right now.
I dig
it. Also, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Ice Barrel. Now, Ice Barrel is a cold therapy training tool that makes it simple and easy to bring ice baths to your routine. And if you've been watching my Instagram, obviously you've seen I've been using my Ice Barrel for contrast training with my sauna. We do fire and ice every Wednesday. I do it again on the weekend. And one of the questions I get a lot from people is, how much ice should you put in? And we've kind of found the magic formula for my Ice Barrel. We go about 2/3 of the way full with water, and then we use 8 bags of ice. So it's 160 pounds of ice, and that will typically get the water below 40 degrees. And 40 degrees might not sound cold, but if that doesn't sound cold to you, then you've never done an ice bath. Because when you're in water that is in the 30s, it is unbelievably cold. But that's where I feel like we've got the best training benefit with it. Typically, we'll start in the sauna for about 10 minutes. We'll go 3 minutes in the Ice Barrel, and then we'll go back to the sauna for a longer go. And this is at 200, 220 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll go back in for about 20 to 25 minutes, and then back in the Ice Barrel for maybe 3 minutes, and then do maybe 30 seconds to a minute, hold under the water. We'll kind of go back and forth like that. And I'll tell you, I've noticed a big difference in my level of inflammation when I wake up, the day after doing it. Normally, my ankles are really stiff in the morning. My knees are stiff. My hips, when I get up and walk down the steps, I look like an old man. But the day after doing my contrast training with Ice Barrel, not only do I sleep great, not only does my stress level feel great, but my hips feel loose, my ankles aren't stiff. I can tell there's just a lot lower inflammation. The other thing with Ice Barrel is durable, compact, portable, and lightweight. You can pick it up, carry it on your shoulder. It's easy to take anywhere. It's made in the USA, made right here in Ohio, using 100% recycled material. They have a 30-day money-back guarantee, and they also offer financing. And so for now, Ice Barrel is giving the Wrestling Strength Podcast listeners $125 off when you go to icebarrel.com/gutcheck, or let's just make it easy for you. Just use code GUTCHECK at checkout, and you'll get $125 off. Do it today. Don't wait, because you'll get colder and feel better. Boom.
You said 200 to 220. We're in 240, bro.
That's right. Yeah, we usually start out about 240, which is, I'm going to say I like when it's 220. 240 feels too hot to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 240 starts to break me pretty quick.
We hit the 250 mark for a minute there when you poured some water on it, right?
Yeah, then we had to open the door, though. It was just too much.
It was like singeing our ears and shit.
It's crazy how the body adapts, though, because the more you start to do something, the more extreme you need it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I did Fire and Ice last summer, or maybe the spring before, whatever, it was with Brian Peters. And, I have a sauna in my house that I've used forever, but it only goes up to like 145. And I'd been in one.
Infrared.
Yeah, it's an infrared. But I'd been in one at Lifetime Fitness before with Reese Humphrey and his dad. And it went up to maybe 180. And that felt so hot,
Mm-hmm.
So I'd never been in anything regularly over 140 and just at 180 the one time. And so Brian had us at his house. And I think his was at like maybe 180, 185. And, he had like a trough or something that he had the ice in. And, I guarantee the water's probably in the mid-50s. It wasn't nowhere near as cold as what we're doing now. But it felt unbelievably cold. The sauna felt like excruciatingly hot. Where now if I get in a sauna that's 180, I'm like, when am I going to sweat?
Right.
And like if I don't put 8, there's been a couple times where I've only, I'll just grab 3 or 4 bags of ice today. The water, it's like, I feel like I could stay in here all day, So it's crazy how you start to adapt, and like the kind of what feels extreme to you just keeps kind of getting pushed up.
Yep. I agree, man. And you get almost better off just going all the way, man.
Right.
Starting at that 220. Because I was like trying to build up using the Lifetime sauna also, that 170, 180. And it just I felt like I never made a lot of progress. Like the amount of time that I was doing, I don't remember what it was, but it felt like the same every time. And then as soon as we started doing like the 220, or even like 200 above, but usually I think 220 is about where we're at. I start feeling true benefits. Then I felt like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It feels like it life changing almost.
Yeah, and honestly, the 170, 180 is great. I think I sweat pretty good in it, but mentally, like I get so bored,
right?
Because I have to sit there so long, to start suffering. Like, that's what we want to do in a sauna, me and you at least.
Yeah.
We're trying to suffer.
It feels
at 220, we're suffering at like 10, 15 minutes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're suffering. We're like, dude, I'm start questioning how much I want to be in here. Whereas the 170, 180, like, I'm at like 20, 25 minutes before I start questioning. And by then, I'm just like, dude, I just want to get out of here anyway.
You get kind of
Go
bored.
do something else.
I think when it's extreme like that, when it's hot, when it's 220 to 240, or when we have that water super cold in the ice barrel, it feels like training.
Yeah.
That's why I'm in there. Like,
I
I feel like I'm training right now. I don't feel like I'm just sitting around sweating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not leisure, which, I mean, Lifetime is what it is, right? Like, it's not meant to be too intense, right? Like, they gotta cater to the soccer moms too.
Yeah. I mean, if I want to do a leisurely sauna, and then I'll go do the one in my basement.
Yeah.
What I mean? But I really have no desire to do that now.
Yeah. And I guess the infrared's different too anyway. So
yeah, the benefits are different for sure.
Yeah.
But I think I told you I got in the other day. Julie was down there. She'd done like a bike workout or whatever. I went down and talked to her about something. So I just got in and talked to her for a few minutes. And it was, 140, 145. And I was just thinking, like, it almost, I know that's like mental because like my house is only 70.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting in, it's 140, but it felt almost cold. I'm like, this ain't even hot at all. But
so my infrared sauna at my house is a little different. Maybe I should.
No, I've gotten yours before. It's hotter than mine. I felt like.
Yeah, it gets up to like 160, 170, but the heaters are so close to you because it's such a small sauna.
Yeah.
I think the heaters close there to your legs, they got to be like 200. They got to be.
It definitely, that time I came over for your weight cut, it definitely felt hotter than whatever like if it said 160, it felt hotter than
Yeah,
that.
because where the thermometer is so far away from the heaters too.
Yeah.
But I still, it's so small, man. It's like, it's aggravating to sit in it, You feel claustrophobic. There's no comfortable position.
Dude, I'm telling you, you need one of those cedar barrels.
I'll get on it, bro.
You got plenty of space in your yard there.
Yeah, I'll get on it someday.
Put it out there right by that new deck,
I know, sometime.
Hey, well, I'll tell you what, man, something I wanted to talk about on here, which we've talked a lot about in the gym, but I want to talk about, kind of some of the controversies with scoring in the UFC. So probably most people that are listening are UFC fans or kind of casual fans. They probably at least have a somewhat general, knowledge of the way UFC fights are scored. It's based off the boxing system. They call it the 10-point must system. So basically 10-9 must system. So basically you score a round. Hey, if this guy won the round, you give him 10 points. And then the guy who quote unquote lost the round, 9 points. Or if it was a blowout that round, they'll score 10-8. Or I don't know. Is there any 10-7s in MMA? I know in boxing you'll see it every once in a while.
It's possible, I guess. But, boxing is much more clear. I don't remember ever seeing a 10-7, honestly. But, in boxing, it's much more clear what a 10-7 is. They get knocked down twice, right?
Yeah.
And the guy won the round.
Or some fights they'll even have it do like a no 3 knockdown rule for boxing.
Yeah.
So someone could get floored.
But you could get knocked down twice and it'd be a 10-7.
Yeah. So I think, not only then I think with boxing, it can also be a little bit more clear cut as far as like who won the round, even though there's tons of controversies throughout the sport of boxing. Mm-hmm. But there's not as many variables as MMA. Mm-hmm. So someone could get knocked down, but then maybe that guy gets 3 takedowns, or maybe he holds control or whatever, Whereas boxing, it's, okay, who's being the aggressor, who's landing the cleaner shots, who's taking more shots, things like that. Those are all variables in MMA too, but then you also have takedown, you have control, you have submission attempts. You have all these different things, and then, kind of over the course of what happens over 5 minutes, maybe the judge doesn't remember what happens that last 30 seconds or whatever, or they're influenced by the crowd or whatever it is, and then they got to assign a 10-9 or a 10-8 or whatever. And then to complicate things, the athletes have no idea what the score is. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. I know it's been an idea, it's been floated a little bit to kind of change things and have open scoring where the fighters would actually know, like, okay, shit, I thought I won that round, but now it's 10-9, I'm down or whatever.
Yeah, I would start with, how they score. Damage is number one in MMA. I find that problematic myself. For instance, when I fought Carlos Condit, right? They gave him the first round. I thought I won 2 rounds, but they gave him all 3 rounds. I assume they gave him the first round based on damage, right? What? Because I was cut open really badly. What the judges failed to see was I got cut from landing a takedown and my face hitting the cage. Or even my last fight with Barberina that I clearly won, and they gave it to Brian Barberina. All respect to him. I think, they probably considered his shots more damaging me because of, again, cuts.
Well, I think that's a problem if they're only scoring on damage because, like you said, cuts.
They're not only scoring on damage.
Well, they're saying that's the number one thing.
Yeah.
Because anyone's going to see blood at any time, and like they're going to think, okay, well that guy got damaged more. Mm-hmm. How easy is it for you to get a nosebleed or to get cut on your cheekbones?
I got so much scar tissue. That's what I was getting at. I got scars on my face that you could flick them with your finger and they're going to open up. You know what I mean? So it's like, was that really damage? And honestly, cuts aren't damaging. That damaging.
It's not painful in the way that's going to inhibit you from fighting.
Yeah, it doesn't bother you at all, other than some blood getting in your eyes is the only thing that can bother you. Like, I would much rather get a big cut on my face than get punched hard, because that means if it's a blunt punch that lands cleanly, it's probably not going to cut, but it's going to damage my brain.
Right.
If I get cut, that means it probably slipped off.
Right.
Right. It probably didn't actually damage me that much. It just cut my skin. Your skin's not, it's pretty delicate, right? So I always start with that. I think that is the first problem with the scoring system. Like, it shouldn't be based solely on damage. Damage certainly has to have a factor, but damage itself is a very subjective thing. Now there's obviously points where the damage was clear too, so that's, I don't think that's as simple as just writing the word damage and saying, okay, the guy with the most damage should get that inflicts the most damage should win the round, right?
What do you think should be the number one factor?
I don't think there should be a number one factor. I would start with that. Like maybe you get more damage, but I get more control. It's like, well, how do you really score it then? And I think it's something that needs to be talked about a lot on how they're going to score it. And what should be number one is kind of up in the air, and it depends, a lot on the particular styles. That's what MMA makes it so complicated, right? Like if I'm a jiu-jitsu guy and I just want to get you to the ground and I go for submission after submission and, maybe you defend them or whatever. Maybe I don't actually tap you out, but I'm implementing my game. Like, I don't know why that wouldn't get scored as much as someone that's, just trying to punch someone. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm trying to win my way. Like, it's mixed martial arts, right? So, like, if this was a jiu-jitsu match or any grappling match, I would be controlling and winning, right? It's mixed martial arts. It's not just striking martial arts, right?
Do you think maybe the mentality of the judges is kind of like who is actively and I guess submissions would fall in this too, even if you're not getting who's actively trying to win the fight, who's trying to end the fight?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
This is I think,
and that would be the grappler's way of trying to end the fight,
yes,
even if none of them land.
Yeah, I think this is important, and you'd have to look at they talk about like effective grappling, right? That's where a judge needs to be knowledgeable and see, like, okay, was that a legitimate submission or is he just spamming?
Yeah.
Just like a lot of the punches that people throw, like, is he just spamming punches, just throwing wildly, or is he actually setting something up to create a finish? And again, it's going to take a lot of education from judges, and it's always going to be subjective.
Yeah, there's no way for it not to be subjective.
Exactly. And that's where there's no perfect system. One of the best that I've seen is it's called Verdict MMA.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they just have fans score it online or whatever, but they score it minute by minute. So who won this minute rather than who won the entire round, which makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, because you see people, and you used to see it in boxing, a lot of people would steal rounds at the end of the round.
Yes.
So maybe it's a close round. One guy kind of had the edge.
Oscar De La Hoya all day.
Right? Sugar Ray Leonard used to do that a lot. He would
Sugar Ray Leonard,
he'd throw a bunch of flurries right at the end.
Yeah.
I think he did that kind of famously. I think it was the Hagler fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hagler kind of would outbox him the whole rounds, but then Sugar Ray would go nuts the last, 20 seconds or whatever and steal the rounds.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of a famous example of it.
Yeah, and that's where, we want to try to take away those types of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just simply the better martial artist wins.
Yeah, who won
and martial
more than 7.5 minutes of that 15-minute fight.
Exactly. And yeah. And again, martial arts themselves are very subjective, right? It's like, okay, what martial art is the best, right? That's kind of what the original idea of mixed martial arts was about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no one really knows, and there is not necessarily a best. So it's like, it is my 10 submissions that were near finishes, is that as good as your punches, your 20 jabs that you landed on me? In a real fight, it kind of is, you know what I mean? Because then I only take that one and it's going to finish you. Whereas you might have to punch me 20 more times to get a finish, right? Unless you're like a knockout guy. And then even in boxing, it's like, okay, is the volume puncher should he get the round, or the guy that landed the big shots? The guy that threw 200 shots in this round and didn't really inflict a lot of damage versus the guy that landed 2 really hard shots.
Well, if you think about it, if the scoring is already so tough and subjective for boxing, then to take it and put it on more, mixed martial arts with all these different variables, then there's no way it can be, a good system of scoring when it was already controversial to begin with.
Exactly.
Now, I know they did it as a way to kind of legitimize MMA for the commissions or whatever is why they started using the scoring. But I think like I'm surprised there hasn't been a bigger push now that the sport's been legitimate for so long to overhaul it and make scoring that is unique for the sport.
It's going to be difficult to make changes now. And that's, so what I would kind of suggest, and I don't know the exact wording for this, I don't know exactly how you would implement it, but the guy that's working more towards finish should be the guy getting the points. And I like the verdict MMA system of each minute, So like, what are you doing this minute to work towards a finish?
What if there was some type? Now, of course, this would take more judges and make it more complicated. But what if instead of just awarding each round, what if there was X amount of factors? Like, let's say we could describe the top 5 factors of MMA, like, working to finish, striking, grappling, position, whatever, aggression. You had all these different factors that had to be scored on every round. You know what I mean? So maybe you could lose 2 of the things, but you won 3 of the things, and that gave you the round or something.
So that's sort of what they do now. Not exactly, but it's
I mean, in theory, they're supposed to do something like that, right?
Yeah, because they have their list of factors, but they're more linear. Where there's like the damage is number 1, and then there's like I forget the actual list, but it's like octagon control and aggression and takedowns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like a list, and it's like this is the most important. Then there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this, and
yeah. So I guess it would be like
basically like if number 1 is even, then number 2 comes in.
Yeah.
If number 2 is even, number 3 comes in. And
I'm saying, imagine if each one of those were scored separately.
I like that too.
Instead of them just being, hey, they contribute to who won that round. It's each one of those is scored each round.
Yeah.
So there's different ways you can score points.
I think we could probably have a lot of podcasts talking. We could probably have a complete podcast series just talking about this, and I could do more research. You could, and we could absolutely do an entire series on this and, get our opinions more clarified. I think, your original question, was about the open scoring, which is, I think, the most obvious thing in the world.
Well, bro, think about it. Like wrestling, when Logan Stieber was out there trying to win a national title, he could look at the score at any time and know, is he winning? By how much? Does he need to score? Whatever.
Right.
How much time's on the clock? How many points do I have to score? Every wrestler knows that. Every football game you've ever watched. Every sport ever.
Except for boxing.
Yeah.
And my biggest argument for it being necessary in boxing and MMA is that it is a subjective score. In wrestling, it's not subjective. Football,
Right.
It's not subjective, right? You cross the line, you get these many fucking points, right? So even if they didn't have an open score, like you would know what the score is, right? Because
yeah, even in wrestling, I mean, freestyle, some of it's a little subjective, but for the most part, you would know.
Yeah, for the most part, right?
Yeah,
So
the fact
there'd be some
that
close calls
the
here and
fact
there,
that
but
it's subjective and you as the athlete really don't have an idea.
you don't know. The argument against it that I've heard so far has been, okay, the third round, well, if you're up 2 rounds, you're just going to puss out and, lose that round or, dance around, run or whatever.
Well, that happens now anyway.
It does happen occasionally. But also what they are forgetting is, what about the second round? Okay.
Right.
So I won the first round. Say me and you are fighting, right? I won the first round. Now I have to win the second round. And now you have to win the second. Actually, you
Right.
have to win the second round.
I have to win the second round.
But I still want to win this.
Yeah, I know.
The second round's going to be absolutely tremendous.
And you think about it, there's going to be the fighters are still more fresh in the second round versus the third round.
Mm-hmm.
The second round is going to be like the Super Bowl of every fight.
Every time.
I know I'm down 1 round, and it's like now it's do or die.
Yeah. So now instead of the third round being do or die, now it's the second round, right? Because, maybe we go into the third like kind of 1-1 or something. But we think it is, but we don't actually know.
Right.
So we go into the third round. Yeah, we fight hard because we don't even know. So everybody wants to talk about that third round. And, they got a point there, but they forget about the second round is going to be ridiculous all the time now.
Every second round is going to be the best ever.
Going to be best, yeah.
Yeah. I think
and the first also, right? Because which it already is, right? Everybody's going to try to do the first round well. But now if I know that you're up a round, I'm going to give everything I got in the second round. I got to get it back.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that I haven't heard it. It's actually probably the best argument for open scoring I've ever heard.
And now I just get, and now, let's finish it on, right? Now, let's say you won the first. I just won the second, but I had to work my ass off to win the second. Now the third is even more intense, right? Because now there ain't no question of okay, I got the second round, but, if there wasn't open scoring, you thought that maybe you might have had it. So you're going to kind of dance around the third round.
Well, I wonder if even the opposite would happen. Like, all right, now I know I've lost the first 2 rounds. That third round, I know I have to knock you out or I'm done. So maybe you might try to dance around a little bit, but I'm not going to just like engage in this dance. I'm going to come at you swinging and go for broke.
Exactly. So there's so many situations like that that we're just bringing up a couple of them. There's more of them. When everybody focuses on this one single argument, and I promise that it would happen. Yes, their argument is valid. Like there's many guys that are going to win 2 rounds and they're going to dance around third round. But if already winning the first 2 rounds anyway, like, do you really need an exciting third round? You know what I mean? Like, he's already won the first 2 rounds. Like, he's probably doing well, and the guy's probably doesn't have a chance anyway. Most likely, sometimes not the case. Maybe they're 2 intense, close rounds, and then the guy's like, all right, well, we don't need a third intense round. So I'm saying this, to me, is just a much rarer thing than people make it out to be.
What do you think it'll take for there to be open scoring in the UFC?
I have no idea. It's just the athletic commissions, and I don't know. Maybe one day I'll start my own organization, because I've always thought about it, and I would love to do it. I'd probably have to go to like an Indian reservation or, some other country or something, because I want to do open scoring. But what I also want to do is no time limit fights. It doesn't have to be every fight like that, but if 2 guys agree to it, I think we could absolutely have no time limit. I think we could do fights without a cage. I think we could do fights with less rules. I don't see any reason why not. I think it would be, purify the sport even more. Like, at least give guys opportunity for that. Like, I don't see any reason, guys couldn't negotiate in their contracts to fight a certain guy. Like, look, I don't want a cage. We could do it on, a fucking basketball court, and there's a lot of ways that this could be done where people, think that it couldn't, but it absolutely could. You're doing it on a fucking football field, like if you run for an hour, all right, then, that's part of the game, right?
Do you think that'd be something where, like, hey, like, let's say you have this on this Indian reservation or whatever, you have this new league you put together. Do you see it was something like maybe you have more set rules in place until, like, say the title fights? Like, all right, now we're going to find out who's the champion. So we have the 2 number 1 guys that fight, and like, hey, there's no rounds, there's no time limits, and there's less rules.
Yeah, I'd have to cross that bridge if I get there, I guess, right? But
we're going to do it in Thunderdome. There's going to be chainsaws hanging and all that shit.
I love that. Put barbed wire fences, electric fences, maybe alligator moats. We could go all day with this. But, I think, like, I don't see any reason why, a wrestler couldn't say, look, I want to have headbutts in my fight.
Right.
Yeah. I want to take guys down and headbutt the fuck out of them. I'm like, all right.
Shout out to Mark Coleman there.
Right? 100%, right?
Yeah.
He'd still be champion today.
Right. They basically made that rule for him.
Yeah, exactly. Hoist Gracie would have got beat if the rules were more modern when he fought Chemo and he grabbed his hair. Chemo
I can't even remember that fight.
So Chemo was headbutting the shit.
He was the Hawaiian guy with
had a ponytail. Yeah. And Hoist was able to grab his hair. So this to me is a fascinating fighting. This is what's fascinating about it, right? Like, he was able to use something that Chemo made a mistake in. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
This is a fight. Like what we do now is a sport, which
Right.
is great too. It's the greatest sport in the world. Don't get me wrong, but it's a sport. If we can take away that stuff, let's make it more of a fight. I think this is fascinating to me. I think it'd be fucking awesome. And then like more true martial arts can evolve out of this.
What do you think of the bare knuckle boxing stuff?
It's all right.
I've seen some highlights, but I haven't actually watched an event or watched any full fights or anything.
I haven't either, to be honest. It doesn't excite me that much just because of the talent level in there. Like if Floyd Mayweather fought in it, I would want to watch it.
Right.
You know what I mean? If Canelo fought or Triple G or...
Dude, imagine Canelo in a bare knuckle fight.
Yeah. Like this is just, you know, when it comes to boxing, you know, these martial arts, you know, boxing is a martial art too. When it comes to sports like this, yeah, I mean, I just like to see the highest level guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't really care necessarily what the rules are or what the equipment is. I mean, I just want to see the fucking highest level, man. And a lot of, from what I have seen in the bare knuckle, these guys just, they're not really using a lot of skill. And I'm not,
a lot of haymakers and...
Yeah. And I'm not sure, like, why that changed or why that is versus regular boxing. Like, you would never see, I guess, you wouldn't normally see guys go fight like that with boxing gloves on. It's like all you did was take gloves off. So why can't you throw a jab now?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So I'm not sure, you know, I haven't dug into it a whole lot.
I mean, I wonder if it's something that the promoters are kind of pushing for the style of fights. You know what I mean?
I can
They
see
could
that.
probably say, hey, we don't want you out there, you know, doing the clamshell and just working the defense up. They want you to fight, you know?
Yeah, and the types of guys that they are bringing in are those types of guys, you know?
Because I know I've had some buddies that have fought like in the West Virginia Tough Man before, and they said like, if you go in and just try to box the guys, the judges won't give it to you. They said you got to like shove them around and you got to throw big punches. And
yeah, and you only got 1 minute too.
Yeah. He said, so basically you just got to go in there and brawl. He said, my one buddy that went to the finals one year, he said when he got to the finals, he said like, if it was a boxing match, he won. But he said they gave it to the other guy because the other guy was just throwing wild punches and pushing him around.
Yeah, which is just silly to me.
I mean, the whole Tough Man thing's silly anyway. But but same concept that maybe the fighters of bare knuckle, that's kind of what they're pushing. And they already have those type of guys anyway.
That would make sense, yeah. Yeah, and, you know, maybe some backdoor bonuses and stuff for that type of fighting. So I have no idea. Like I said, I haven't really dug into it that much. It just never really excited me that much. Just, again, I like the skill, especially in boxing. Like, that's just one of those sports where I just like watching the skill. It's kind of a silly sport to me to start with. Like, when I compare it to something like Muay Thai, where it's like a real striking art, you know, like you can throw people, you can elbow them. Like if I'm going to strike with someone, like everything's supposed to be like, all martial arts are supposed to kind of represent like, real fights. You know, it's like, well, if we're going to fight, like I'm just going to kick your fucking leg, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Or I'm going to knee your face or like, why would I punch you with my hand and break my bones so I could just elbow you?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, so it's like boxing itself, you know, again, it's not, to me, it's not a fight. Just like jiu-jitsu is not a fight and wrestling is not a fight. A lot of people call them these things, but
yeah, I mean, overseas, they call wrestling fighting, you know?
Yeah.
Like who you'll fight today. You know?
Yeah. But I think, you know, it's just a translation thing, right? Like Spanish, I think they say lucha, right? So that means all like combat sports.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But regardless, to me, again, it's just not a fight. It's you know, it's an athletic competition with certain rules. You know, your object is to punch the guy more than he punches you. You're not fighting. You're just trying to punch a guy more than he punches you. Like,
Right.
if we're going to fight, like, you know, I mean, realistically, yeah, I'll kick your leg or I'll fucking, if I'm going against a boxer, like, yeah, I'm going to grab your fucking leg and I'm going to put you on your ass and I'm going to choke you out. So, like, why would I even fuck with the rest of it?
This kind of sounds like my mentality, like when I wrestle my high school kids now. Like I don't really wrestle them; I just kind of like street fight them, you know, because I'm not getting, I'm not getting beat by one of my high school kids in here in the gym in front of everybody. So it always like, you know, Maddox, I had to rough him up one time. I think I told you that story. You should ask him about it next time he comes to your gym.
Well, yeah.
I'm not getting beat up by a 16-year-old punk in my own gym that I've been training since he was 12. I'm gonna fucking cheat, you know.
But it's great when they do beat you, right?
What's that?
Because then you trained them well.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing with them, I mean, number one, they're all way better wrestlers than me anyway. I'm just old and, you know, strong
Sure, yeah.
or whatever. But it is cool to, like, when I can feel them and feel how strong they are, to feel like, all right, I don't, like, you know, I might bench more than one of them or something, but like I'll grab a hold of them and I'll be like, I don't feel any stronger than this 16-year-old kid. And then I know I've done my job, you know, that when they feel like.
Well, that's one of the things I love about you, man, and training with you is like, you know, we compete on things all the time. And you probably win more often than not, but you're cheering for me to win. You're like, you should be better than me, bro. Come on. Like, you know, get better at it. And that's something like owning my own gym. Like I struggle with sometimes. I'm like, I want to fuck this guy up. And then I teach him something and I'm like, and then they use it on me. And on the one hand, I'm like, I'm proud of them. You know, I'm like, yeah, dude, like I'm a fucking great teacher. But I'm like, I don't want to show you anything else, bro. Like you're going to fuck me up more.
Well, I think it's a little bit different. It's similar, but a little different scenario because your ego is going to be tied to it differently because this is what you do and you do it at a very high level. You know what I mean? If I was a high level wrestler and I was still competing, or maybe if I even had ever been a high level wrestler, then there would always be that part of like not wanting the student to beat me.
Yeah.
But now, like, I want the student because, like, if they can't beat me, then they're going to be in fucking trouble. Right. If they got to wrestle in the Big Ten, you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
So kind of the same stuff. Like, even though this is what I do, and like, I mean, I feel like the training wise, like, I feel like I can do a lot of the stuff at a high level, like a high level athlete can or whatever. But at the end of the day, I want you to beat me on the bike sprints because if I can beat you, it don't really count for anything. Yeah, I need you to be in the best shape possible so that you can win, and it's a reflection of the work that we've done. So,
absolutely.
But, you know, with you, I mean, you're still fighting at a high level. So if you got a kid in your gym that can kick your ass, like, yeah, you taught him well, but that's also bad for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I have like one kid, you know, comes to mind, has a really good wrestling background, state qualifier. Maybe I'll get him out here someday. You know, and he's just one of those kids that picks things up right away, you know, and every time I teach him something, he hits me with it. But it also, the reason that I actually enjoy it and I keep teaching him things is because then it ups my level. I'm like, okay, you know, now I have to figure out the defense to that, the counter to that counter. And then he's got to figure out the next thing, you know what I mean? So I'm always bringing him up to try to bring me up. And then there's other guys that, you know, I've taught them and stuff, and now I just can't do anything to them. You know what I mean? Usually like the bigger guys, you know what I mean? Where I'm like, dude, the only reason I was getting you is because this simple little mistake, and then they never do it again, and then they're just fucking me up, you know? But usually not the guys my size. Yeah. But it makes it fun, man. Like, you know, even the bigger guys, you know, I'm like, that tells me that, okay, what I was doing was right, but now I gotta get myself to the next level too. There's a reason why what they're doing, what I taught them to do to me is working, just like how whatever I was doing to them before was working, what I'm still doing to everyone else. So I gotta up my level a lot now, you know, and this is all like skill work versus, you know, competing on the Aerodyne or something, right?
Yeah, there's not a lot of skill involved with competing on the Aerodyne.
Yeah, there's no skill, right? It's like you pump that motherfucker hard as you can. The only skill is mental.
Yeah, that's why I'm good at that shit, because the skill is just basically to be able to push hard.
Right.
I remember having this kind of a similar conversation with Reese one time. You know, Reese Humphrey, probably one of the most freak athletes you could ever meet. And I said, yeah, Reese, the reason I can compete with you on this stuff is because there's no skill involved. All it is just you just gotta be tough. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I got toughness. I don't really have any talents, you know?
Yeah.
Toughness is my talent, I guess.
Well, a lot of skills can be developed too. It's not always a talent thing.
Right.
You know, like Reese, for instance, you know, he's going to pick something up. You're going to teach him, bam, he's going to pick it up. He's going to hit it on you tomorrow. Someone like me, you teach me something, I got to practice it 500 times. And then I got to do it against a low-level guy to find the timing, and then a little bit higher level guy. You know, that's kind of how I build my skills, right? That's one of the nice things about you know, having a huge variety of people in the gym, right? I always start with, like, you know, drill it, understand the movement, understand what the goal is, understand what I'm trying to accomplish, and then I'll go against, you know, some turd, you know, maybe, you know, he's been in there for a year or something. You know, he's got to have enough skills that I don't get hurt, but, you know, then I'll try it on him, like, and you'll find a few little details that you need to adjust, and then you get the the next highest level guy, and then you find some more details you need to adjust, and just work your way up the ladder until you're able to hit it on high level guys.
And then next thing you know, you're in the cage holding some guy's ankle, and you throw this overhand elbow from hell that just makes like the ultimate highlight.
Yes, that's exactly right. Well, even that when that was a learned skill. There was like, I think I broke it down on a podcast one time. I should do a YouTube video on it. Like there was actually like 4 different.
You should definitely
techniques.
do a voiceover of that, 100%.
Yeah, okay, I could definitely do a voiceover. That'd be easy.
Yeah, I mean, like we could slow it down. You do a voiceover, you could stop it at each point.
Yeah, I think I'd have to stop and like show the technique, because that was one of those times where everything just clicked for whatever reason.
I'm trying to remember, you shot like a single leg or something, right?
No. He shot no, I started to do a knee tap.
Okay.
Right, and he swam his arm, so my knee tap slipped. So I went down to my knee. I come up, and then he threw a kick, actually while I was still down, but as I was coming up, and I caught the kick, pushed him back to the cage. And like I said, there was a good, I think 4 separate techniques that all flowed together. So it would be cool to do a breakdown of like each technique and how, what I was actually looking for during that technique, and then how I changed it based off his response.
I think that would be an incredible breakdown.
Yeah. I've thought about doing this actually for my entire career, like go through every fight and be like, okay, break them down, kind of like, okay, this is what he did to me. This is what I learned from it. This is what I did to him. And this is how, you could do this to someone.
Dude, this would be gold, content for YouTube. So basically, if you didn't have a gym to run, if you didn't have to train every day, if you didn't have kids, you could just spend all day doing this content and knock it out.
Yeah, it's something. No, I plan on doing it sometime. Just while I'm competing, it's hard to put that much effort into YouTube, but I think it'd be a fun thing to do. And I think I would learn a lot about myself too, like studying myself to that degree and bringing back those memories. I think it'd be a cool thing for me personally, and hopefully for the fans.
Well, I'll tell you what, Matt, I always appreciate having you on the Wrestling Strength podcast. We could probably sit here and talk for hours, and I know you're on people's podcasts a lot, but I think you need your own podcast. I know we've talked about this a little bit, but I think it's something we should put some more thought into, and maybe get something rolling here for you real soon.
I'm down, man. I can't be the leader of it. That's all it comes down to for me.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. There may be a Matt the Immortal Brown, not maybe in the lead chair, but podcast coming soon. We'll see.
I need a good partner.
All right. Peace.